They've got a wall of turbocharged Ford Sierra. Will these Commodores be able to charge through the Sierras on the run to the first corner?
10 seconds away from the start of the James Hardy 1087 World Touring Car Championship. Racing in the 87 Classic and getting away smartly.
As I can remember, I think it was a pretty eventful sort of race because we never expected to go that well.
Oh, he's got it sideways. Had to fight for that to get it back on the road.
Well, you got to think about our cars. They were cars that sort of production cars. They weren't really race cars.
Seaton's game, isn't he?
I hope he doesn't overdo it.
Now these cars really are running on song and very quickly too.
But the man in fourth place and possibly third, depending on how that penalty works out, is Peter Brock.
He was excellent and very hard to beat, is the phrase.
Fierce storm moving in over Mount Panorama.
The team managers frantic, the crews getting out the wet weather tyres in preparation, and Seaton now coming up on the Nissan Gazelle.
Well, my Gazelle wasn't really a rocket ship. It certainly wasn't.
The yellow flags are out at the moment. I think I just saw the pace car going out. It's actually hailing here at present.
And there's another car here about to get collected. Oh,
that's the Brother Fangio car.
Yeah.
Brock was on slicks and stayed on slicks, and he had this idea that he could drive on slicks on a wet track.
It's the usual confident, happy and positive Peter Brock who's in the car at the moment. He's gone at the time of about 25 seconds, and he is gassing in the Commodore. He's put slick tyres on. He's in third position. The drama continues with the Texaco Ford Sierras. Victory number 9 could be on the way.
Well, it looked spectacular because it was spectacular.
At that stage, we didn't even think we were heading for a win, but he was really enjoying himself, and the worst thing you can do to Peter is to tell him how to drive. So.
And he's just hurling it round. I mean, this is some of the most spectacular motoring.
Extraordinary car control, and
it doesn't matter where you go, anywhere in the world, you won't see anybody driving on the limit quite like Brock is now.
You asked for him. It's Peter Brock.
Thanks for all your support out there too. I love the way you're cheering me on.
Peter Brock, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome once again to the Shannons Legends of Motorsport, a program all about the passion that's attached to touring car racing in Australia, and there's absolutely no shortage of it. Over the course of the next few months, we'll be catching up with a whole variety of legends, men who've underpinned this sport over a very long period of time. And we'll be moving around a great variety of locations as well. Bowden Zone in Queensland, National Motor Racing Museum at Bathurst, and also to Shannons Auction Centre in Melbourne. Along the way, we've got some muscle car experts as well to help tell the story. Mark Osler and Aaron Noonan will be joining us as well. They know their stuff. Today we're at Bowden Zone, this unique and rare collection of extraordinary racing cars that really are all about the history of Australian motorsport. And in particular, we're celebrating and telling the story of 1987, a tremendous year in terms of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Bathurst was a round of the World Touring Car Championship, and in the case of Bathurst, it happened to be the last victory at Mount Panorama, the 9th and final for Peter Brock. So a big story attached to that year. Accordingly, we've got some very special guests to spend time with us today. Would you please put your hands together for Glenn Seaton and John Bow.
Thank you. Hello, mate. JB.
Thank you for joining us, gents.
Thank you.
Now, we had an episode earlier in the year, JB, where I can distinctly recall seeing you two having a couple of headbutts from time to time.
Oh.
No, never.
We were, you know, I mean, when we were Ford, both driving Falcons, we were obviously enemies because Ford, in typical Ford fashion, used to play you off against each other. So, you know, big corporates do that. But, you know, with the benefit of time, I have great respect for him. You know, he's a great driver and a great bloke. And I actually raced with him in '87. Bathurst and Sandown, and we did Wellington, although he crashed the car on me, but anyway.
Well, that leads me to the point, because many people will have forgotten that, in fact, in 1987, you were Nissan teammates. As things shook out in that 1987 Bathurst race, after all the hullabaloo post-race, you guys ended up being second. That was something that you'd achieved a number of times at Bathurst, Cito. So, a long time ago, teammates, and a great story.
It was really. I was a young guy. I was 22 at the time, and I got to race with the legend Johnny Bow. Johnny had been in the sport for many more years than I had been at the time, and it was a fantastic driver to team up with to go to Bathurst in the biggest event, probably one of the biggest touring car events in Australia that's happened, which is the World Championship, and to go there with John and in a great team that Fred put together with the Nissan cars.
It was quite funny though, mate. I mean, I'd raced against Glenn at the AMSCAR series at Amaroo and when I drove the Volvo the year before, and Fred Gibson asked me to drive with him because Volvo withdrew. Would I drive with Glenn? I said, yeah, of course I would. And I used to look at these Nissans and think what great cars they were. And when I drove one, I thought, my God, he is a bloody hero. It was the worst race car I ever drove. Yeah. Honestly, I've told Fred that. I've told everybody that'll listen. So
it was amazing at the time. I didn't notice how bad they were, to be honest, because you're 22, you're crazy. But 6 years ago, I got the opportunity to drive the car again and could not believe how bad they were. And I came up to John straight after I drove and said, I agree, but they were the worst car in motor racing.
It was shocking.
It was a great year, though. As I said right at the very beginning of the show, 1987, you were right in the middle of the championship battle. You and Jimmy Richards, Nissan 4-cylinder turbo versus the little double overhead cam M3 BMW. It was a great series that year. And the season began in New Zealand on the streets of Wellington. And at that point in the championship season, the Holden dealer team were very, very strong.
The locals call it the Monaco of the South Pacific. Most visitors call it Wellington. The Wellington street course took its toll, but for the second straight year, Peter Brock and Alan Moffat were unstoppable. Well, they've managed to out-accelerate again, going down to the left-hander. Peter Brock in 0.5. There's McIntyre in the distance.
Well, he's given the game away. He obviously thinks that...
the race is over.
Yes, and that's a mistake.
Well, it could be a costly one. Here's Brock coming through past the Foster's Bridge. The big crowd here in the Wellington waterfront ready to erupt as the two Mobile Commodores come out of the final chicane back onto the start finishing straight. And of course the 1987 Nissan Mobile 500, a formation finish as they come down the start finishing line. Chalk it up 1-2 to the Mobile Holden dealer team.
Wild little racetrack, that place, wasn't it, at Wellington? You drove with George Fury that year.
I remember Wellington, every time I went back there, I always had trouble with the fences because I was too close to the racetrack, I always thought. And I always blamed, because it was on the wharf there, and you'd get a lot of winds in Wellington, and because it was on the wharf, you'd have rain, or water come up from the sea onto the racetrack, and I'd always blame the water from the wind would pick up, put it on the racetrack and put me in the fence. So it was never my fault, because when you're that young, it's never your fault.
No. However, not very long after that, we all trundled off to Calder, where you got your first Australian Touring Car Championship win. I remember I had a red coat on and was in the door at the time to talk to you. That was a big moment in your life.
It was really. It was a pretty hard race because Larry pushed me all the way to the end. I never forget that. And there were some areas on the track where we were quite strong, but there was areas where he was very strong, and I sort of had to get enough gap on him before we got to those areas where he was strong that he could catch back up. And that was probably, looking back on it as a young guy, it was a change in my motor racing career, I suppose, because that was my first touring car win. And it probably opened up that year of giving me a lot more confidence to go into the rest of that year and be competitive.
There's a huge amount of stuff to chat about for 1987. Really looking forward to peeling back the layers with these guys. After the break, we'll talk about the Brock-Holden divorce, because that shaped the balance of the year. And we'll go to the break with some tremendous images from Lakeside, which is one of our favourite racetracks, and this was round 3.
Ready for the start, round 3 of the Shell Ultra Nationals. They're racing and getting away smartly as they went on was, in fact, Glenn Seaton. Going with him is Peter Brock, and then, of course, the two JPS BMWs. Jimmy Richards and Tony Longhurst. Johnson got away to a good start as well. So too did Denny Holm as they track down to the right-hander of the carousel. And it's the 21-year-old who leads Brock, then the two JPS BMWs doing it nicely. Larry Purton's up on the inside, and Nicky Johnson in there with Alan Bryce and George Fury to keep them company. Back in 1948, Australia's first Holden started a motoring revolution in this country. Almost 40 years later, this Holden derivative promises to start a full-scale war.
It's the HDT director, reflecting, as the publicists point out, the inspiration and soul of Peter Brock.
I have a motor car which you can probably see circulating behind me, which is capable of gaining us some much-earned export dollars, and Holden's are trying to stop me, and I'm a pretty determined sort of person, and I'm pressing on. They said to me, if you, Peter Brock, announce this car at the end of this week, we'll withdraw all support for you. Well, I've gone ahead and I've announced it.
They were fighting words. He did drop it into the universe and they did withdraw. And it was really inconceivable for everybody in the industry at the time to consider that Peter Brock and Holden could be at war. Do you remember all that?
I do, and it was sort of one of those things you think at the time, why would you do that based on you had so much support for so many years from Holden, and it was such the icon of motorsport, to be honest, and then to see that change and yeah, it was quite amazing.
And you knew him quite well. In fact, I can recall in that Race of Champions that you did out at Calder was one of the key moments for you career-wise, because you jumped into those proddy cars and you gave all of the established stars of the day in those HDT cars a bit of a whipping. That was a bit of a moment for you.
Yeah, it was a moment. Didn't have any headlights left in it when I finished. But you know, obviously lots been spoken about all that. It was very... I mean, you know, it was a mistake on his part, obviously, but he, you know, he was a strong believer in what he believed.
Yeah,
so, you know,
he's a passionate man.
Absolutely, and you know, he took on the might of the GM empire, which, you know, you wouldn't do nowadays, for sure. And I'm sure if later on when he rejoined HRT, I'm sure he saw the error of his ways. But just the same, you got to admit, wow, I don't think I would have done it.
It's a brave manoeuvre. So in the first 6 months of 1987, as you talked about before, Glenn, it was an extraordinary season for you. So victories in the championship races at Calder, they were only single round in those days, then over in Western Australia. But it led to an extraordinary finale by the time we got to Oran Park. In those days, the Sprint Series and the Australian Touring Car Championship predated the Enduro events. And Jimmy had also won 3 races, as you described before, exchanging this incredible battle. And it began to rain. You were leading, Jimmy was chasing. Here's what happened.
Jim Richards throwing everything at this 22-year-old.
That's a remarkable driving performance by Seaton to catch the car, hold it there and hold Richards out under so much pressure.
Frank Gardner says, well, maybe next time.
Will they stay on slicks? Should they change to wet weather tyres? Nobody has opted to make that move as yet. The weather looks to be holding off. Just a little light rain still falling, but it won't bucket down. It won't make up its mind. The leading car, Glenn Seaton, is coming up on Ludwig Finauer, who's in 10th position on the track. So the leaders are about to lap the number 10th car, number 10th placed car.
Richards down on the inside and spins Seaton, pushes him out of the way. Deary me, that was not what everyone really expected of Jim as Glenn tries to get it back under control again.
Obviously, it wasn't Jim's car.
Were you cranky? Tell the truth.
Probably was.
I thought you were very gracious at the time, I tell you.
Like, at the end of the day, we were racing hard, both of us, and like you saw, there was sort of a little bit of dampness to it, and we're both driving on the limit, and particularly when you said Nissan was moving around a bit, it was more to try and keep the tyre temperature into it with the damp conditions to keep the grip, because as soon as you lose tyre temperature out of a slick in the wet, or when it gets damp, you just got no speed at all. So yeah, just Jimmy looked at it, I suppose, saw the opportunity, and gentleman Jim touched aside.
Well, you ultimately redeemed yourself by grabbing a championship in any case, but it was great racing. It was an unstable car. I had the opportunity to test that car out at Calder once. And
I'll say, Neil, actually, 87, the cars were quite good. It was 86 was when they were unbelievably bad. I never forget being at Bathurst with George Fury in 86 driving together. And down Conrod Straight, it would get this big porpoise in the back and go from side to side, and it was unbelievably scary. Like, I was 21 then, and I didn't have too much fear, I didn't think, but that actually was frightening me every time down Conrod. And as as George, you'd say when he'd come in the pits when to do it, he'd say, we were just looking for the closest barbecue that we could end up on. that's how bad it was moving around. So John got to drive the cars when they were very good.
Oh, God. Thank you so much.
I know that you're fearless because we've got an absolute nugget to show you after the break. Glenn trying really hard to hurt himself at Bathurst. That's to come on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. And we'll go to the break with some great stuff from the Sandown 500 where these two were paired up at 1987.
Castrol 500 is up for grabs for 87. Richards floats it in. Uses a bit of the curve as well and is really working hard on Georgie Fury.
George is definitely holding him up at this stage, but again, it's not up to him to pull over and allow Jim to walk by.
10, 161 laps completed, and what looks like a fierce storm moving in over Mount Panorama.
Along the pit lane, Mark, the team managers frantic, the crews getting out the wet weather tyres. Look, this is the race cam, and that car starting to slip slide very badly.
It's sideways coming out of there, almost got the tail on the wall.
The number 15, Peter Jackson Nissan, BP race cam, that's the shot. Very murky. Persistent rain, although that one big...
Had to fight for that to get it back on the road. I used to drive a go-kart. He's as safe as the Bank of England.
Well, I hope you're right.
He's one of the good old boys from karting, Glenn.
Hope you're right for
I'm not going to
Gibson's sake.
Oh, don't prove me wrong, Glenn. Now, you can see the dilemma. Does he go into the pits and he'll have to put wets on? He's going to wind up with a bigger problem. He's going to be out of tyres. They've given another 10 laps because the track will be dry.
The bravado of youth. Look, I was sitting in the pits watching all this, and I'm thinking, I'm driving this car. He's going to fence this any minute. Unbelievable.
What Barry was saying to Fred, get him in! Get him out of the car before he crashes it!
That's probably true.
The good thing was I could not hear Fred on the radio because he was trying to tell me, from the pits, the guys were saying that he was trying to tell me to slow down. But I actually couldn't hear him, which was good because I enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. 22 years old.
What were you thinking?
Well,
what about the moment on Conrod where you just about stuck her on the grass?
Actually, I thought I was gone then. There was no doubt in that one. But it's funny, it was after I'd done a stint and it was the coming to the end of that stint, when your tyres were all hot, you're in a rhythm and you just all happened. It just, I always remember when it was karting, I always loved it when it was wet and get out there on the go-kart. And I suppose when you're 22, you do stupid things, and I was doing stupid things when I watch it back now.
However, it's a magic moment from the history of the sport from the vault. It's fantastic stuff, Glenn. It was a great day. It was a round of the World Touring Car Championship. The internationals were here in Australia at the time. It was kind of nice when I think there was a period of validation there where we saw our guys and our cars integrate with the world and be competitive. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, Australian motorsport's serious.
I think so. Like the JPS BMWs were easily as quick or quicker than the ones that came from Germany and Italy, you know, so it was credit to Frank Gardner and Jim Richards and I think Tony was driving, Tony Longhurst, wasn't he? So, you know, Australians tend to underplay themselves a bit, you know, and that day, or that meeting, you know, we were as good as anything else, really.
Our chance of winning that race was there because we basically got caught in the pits under the safety car. We were already in the pits doing our pit stop, and the rules were in them days is when the safety car came out, pit lane would close.
And they had two safety cars, I remember.
And they had two safety cars, and we couldn't leave pit lane. We were already in before the safety car came out.
Yeah.
Doing our scheduled stop.
So we were screwed
and we were
over.
caught at the end of pit lane and basically lost us the race, to be honest.
And further adding to the confusion of the day, the way the rules were written at that point, is we're about to see the 05 car for Peter Brock ultimately expires, but with the whole cross-entry process, which served different people well at different times, allowed him to jump cars. But here's what happened first in that sequence.
Hello. Looks like one of the Commodores smoking profusely. Must be Peter Brock.
Yep, it's the Parsons car. Peter Brock, Parsons car. Parsons at the wheel, of course, only having just got in the vehicle.
And that looks pretty terminal to me. When you get that sort of smoke, you know that something inside is doing what it ought to.
The second Brock entry, the 10 car, is also in the pits at the moment. Peter McLeod getting out of the car and handing over to John Crook.
That has happened on lap number 35 when Peter Brock, David Parsons were running 9th on the road.
And remember that this was onion layers sort of peeling, and ultimately these guys were progressing through the field. Brock jumps cars, continues to progress through the field, but at that stage the Europeans still well and truly had a stranglehold. But as I've said at the top of the show, we've got some guys that have been helping us with this series that know their muscle cars inside out. Aaron Noonan has been trawling the 7 Volt for some gems, and there's no shortage of them in the 1987 year, Aaron.
Neil, it's hard to know what to pick out from 87, but as the guys have mentioned, first year that a safety car was introduced at Bathurst, and needless to say, it caused a little bit of confusion. Have a look at this grab from the 1987 races. Wynne Percy, who was co-driving for Alan Grice in a Commodore, got a little bit muddled about what was going on.
Wynne Percy, what's the situation at the moment?
Well, I believe the situation is that we should stay behind the foil for 1 lap after the flashing lights go off. Your guys are now displaying green flags. I don't really want to take the risk of overtaking. That's the problem.
Yeah, with green flags, it's got to mean go, though, Wynne.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
OK, I'm going.
Go for it, Winnie.
Well, that's the best cue I've ever seen. When the boss says go for it, you can get stuck into it.
Well, we'll find out. So, we follow Wynne Percy in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore.
Well, green flags mean go in any book in the world. And, just go for
it. Alan Grice there in the commentary box talking to his teammate Wynne Percy. Green means go, so away he went. But it wouldn't be the first time there was a bit of safety car confusion at Bathurst.
No, it's been happening since that year. And it still happens, doesn't it?
Well, I said earlier on that there was a process unfolding with Peter Brock, eventually finding his way to position number 1 at the end of that 1987 race. That took a long time to unfold, but one of the steps in that process was to get out of the Ailing 05 car and to get into the number 10 car.
Meanwhile, the second Brock Commodore.
The only surviving car, and Brock, is it? Yes, Peter Brock getting into the car. Brock says, I'm ready.
And he's off, Peter Brock. So the 8 times James Hardy winner rejoins the field.
Was in 6th place when he went into the pits, and I don't think he'd have lost that much ground there.
We'll have that for you shortly. That's good to see. Brocky is back out on the racetrack. Who is coming up on the ladder?
Let's say provisionally they're 3rd still, but the man in 4th place and possibly 3rd, depending on how that penalty works out, is Peter Brock.
Brock in the number 10 Mobile Holden Commodore. Welcome back to the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. We're telling the story of the 1987 championship year. An amazing year for the series, an amazing year at Bathurst, and fortunately right here in Bowden's own private collection of cars is the number 10 Commodore. Mark Osler is with it.
Thanks, Neil. It's amazing. This is Peter Brock's last Bathurst 1000 winner. And fortunately, thanks to the Bowdens, it's preserved for all time. You know, these cars were pretty basic compared to the turbo rocket ships they were up against at Bathurst that year. It was powered by a 4.9 litre V8, the last of the carburetor V8s from Holden, 5-speed Getrag gearbox, custom-made rear axle with, dare I say it, a Ford 9-inch setter, Harrop brakes, just a very, very basic car. Weighed about 1,325 kilos, but it's just amazing how this car won the race, because this one was not supposed to win the race. It started from 20th position on the grid and clawed its way up to 6th. Then when Brock got in it, they just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. What's extraordinary about its performance is that it was full of second-hand parts. Brock had his back against the wall. He had no money. So when he finished qualifying in the 05 car, all the parts from his car, the worn-out engine, worn-out gearbox, worn-out rear axle, worn-out brakes, were all loaded into this car just to meet Mobil sponsors' justification to have 2 cars on the grid. It was only supposed to last about 10 laps but amazingly, it went right through the race. 05 failed early and 10 took it all the way through. It's just fantastic this car's been preserved for all time and a great way to bookend Brocky's amazing Bathurst career.
Well done. Thank you, Mark. Excellent. It is amazing when you look through the window of these cars. I did it as I first arrived here earlier in the day. You can't believe that you drove them, and they look so totally different to the modern cars.
Very simple.
Yet at the time we thought they were the space shuttles.
Well, I mean, these ones were better than the earlier ones. The first Nissan I drove with Glenn had an alloy cage in it, didn't they? You know, bolted in. The later ones had, you know, the 87 car had a steel cage. That's right. So, which created, you know, more handling problems, I think.
But a lot more safety, but more handling problems the following year,
Back to the race. You guys were continuing to blaze away. You were contenders, as you well describe it. One of the things that we found fascinating was, as it had been in the Australian Touring Car Championship sprint rounds, you were locked heavily in a battle with the BMWs. Have a look at this.
Here he comes, down the inside. Moment of truth for Jimmy Richards. Look at Fury. Fury going to try and see if he can sneak down there as well. Here comes the farmer. They work their way up Motorcraft Hill. Jimmy Richards will have the line for the next turn, but George takes it in deep. Will Richards give way? George is very wide as they come out of the turn. Power on. Turbo boost. Door handle to door handle. And the Nissans get through on the inside of the JPS BMW. Sensational stuff.
Great battle, boys, wasn't it? It was just fantastic.
It was. That was the first stint of the race, and I remember it was the Jimmy. There was also the Snitzer BMWs, and we're all dicing together, and they was so even between the cars, and it was just a matter of being consistent and trying to get the best lap time every lap to come away with a result. And I think at the end of the day, with the combination of John and I, that we could keep the pace going on the car, and we just sort of got away from them guys then. It was probably great for us for the race.
So here you are as relatively younger guys striving to win that first...
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Well, I was young.
Well, yeah.
I was young.
Well, but you'd already...
I thought I was young.
Point is, you'd both done things in motorsport before, but you were still chasing the first Bathurst win, which is a real hallmark moment for any driver, career-wise. Now you're senior drivers, you've been successful, you've made a living, you've done very well out of it. You look back at this stuff now, what does it mean to you to look at this stuff and the emotion, sort of the human story, if you like?
Honestly, I sit here with Glenn and I feel a bit of a fake because, I mean, he did the bulk of the work, truly. He did, and, you know, I was relatively, I'd done one season of touring car racing in the Volvo, so I was relatively inexperienced to it, and, you know, I was just glad to be part of the Peter Jackson team. It was, you know, well run and well organised and well resourced, and they actually paid me, and I thought, well, how good is this?
How much?
I can't tell you. I don't think it was a lot in modern day terms, but at the time I thought, wow, you know, you can get paid to drive a racing car. How long's this been going on?
Yeah, it was amazing, isn't it?
And you know, I enjoyed it because Glenn was very good at driving those cars. I eventually got the hang of it, but I tell you what, it was a difficult car to drive, truly.
John Bauer, Glenn Seaton, our special guests on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. A break, and we're back with more in just a moment.
Peter Brock across the top of the mountain. Every time he goes by, listen to them cheer. They know where he's placed. Third position.
And he's just hurling it round. I mean, this is some of the most spectacular motoring. It doesn't matter where you go, anywhere in the world, you won't see anybody driving on the limit quite like Brock is now.
Just keep it on the island, Peter, and just slow down. At that stage, we didn't even think we were heading for a win, but a podium would have been great. But he was really enjoying himself, and the worst thing you can do to Peter is to tell him how to drive. So we just let him at it, but it was pretty nerve-wracking.
Extraordinary car control, and you know, Brock at his best was in that fluent style that he had.
was beautiful to watch.
And people don't realize that he was really very gifted at being able to throw a car around and have no problem. And you know how many times he was driving with his hand out the window and hello, hello. I sort of half admired that, but he was very good in the wet and in slippery conditions.
And we put wets on the car, and off I went out onto the track and continued to circulate, and Brock was on slicks and stayed on slicks, and he had this idea that he could drive on slicks on a wet track. And while the camera was on him and he was looking very spectacular, I was catching him 10 seconds a lap. So, you know, the television myth wasn't actually the reality, to be honest, in that particular day.
It was a big day, a big event, lots of tales, and it was great to hear from some of the people behind the scenes there in reflection. Peter Brock and 1987. Boys, as I said before the break, the weather was caving in, and you know, and I'd like you to describe it to our friends here, just how treacherous the place is when it gets like that, when it gets that mirror shine on it and you come out of the wheel tracks.
I think you better do this.
Well, you saw my vision before. When you come out of the wheel tracks, you're in a bit of trouble, but yeah, it's one of those places that you've just got to so much focus on the place when it's wet to stay in those wheel tracks. As soon as you get 1 millimetre out of those wheel tracks, they just aquaplane and just slide off into the fence. And as we've seen so many guys go off in the past at that place. But it's also one of those places that's very different conditions every corner you come to, because it's such elevation changes and weather conditions from top of the mountain to bottom. You're sort of relatively pioneers when you come to each corner to what the conditions are going to be, because they're blind corners and you don't know what's around the other side, as in the track conditions wise in grip level. So I suppose that's the legend of Bathurst, is to be able to get around there at 161 laps without hitting anything, and the fastest you can, and it'll give you the opportunity to win that race. And
I've always believed in the if in doubt, put wets on.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, at the back end of it, it's very good. At the back end of the race, there was a lot of stuff starting to unfold, and there was one particular young bloke up there in a red jacket who got all excited about the weather.
The yellow flags are out at the moment. I think I just saw the pace car going out. It's actually hailing here at present. It's freezing cold, and we're standing by for the other Texaco Sierra. And if you've ever seen some sensational pit activity, you've never seen anything until what you're going to see in the next few minutes, because the dealer team are getting ready, the JPS team are getting ready.
Chicotto with trouble as well.
Limping back to the pits. Yeah, he's got one wheel that's virtually right off.
That's the 24 car, the Bajent Bauquet car in the background, the 91 Toyota, and there's another car here about to get collected.
Oh, that's the Brabham Fangio car.
Yeah. Horrible. It went from being average to really rotten in the latter part of the race. Now it's time for more from the vault. Here's Aaron.
Well, Neil, earlier on I dug out a little bit of a gem that saw the safety car involved. I've got another one for you here. Now, golden rule in motor racing is don't pass the pace car. But as you'll see at Bathurst in 1987, well, just about everybody did. Have a look at this.
Yeah, the lights are out, so it'll be one more lap and the race will be underway once more.
There we go. Now that, I believe, well, just incredible. I thought they were supposed to spend a lap behind the pace car. At the moment, the pace car's placed 15th in the race.
Wasn't Chicotto penalised 3 minutes for doing this the last time out?
I'd say so.
Yep.
You know, that's why they turn the pace car light out really late now. Because they turned it off with a lap to go.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It was just mass confusion, then everybody kind of ultimately just blazed on by.
They couldn't penalise anyone, they all did it.
It was quite extraordinary, yeah. And it is hard when you're in the car to think all that through, understand all of the detail that was in the regs. A lot more discipline in those radio processes now.
Well, once you saw the first guy pass, you weren't going to, if you were in the line behind, you weren't going to stay behind the safety car. But I didn't actually remember that, so you must have been in the car at the time, John.
I can't remember it either, though. So.
It's some of that
I remember when.
I am old.
And some of that earlier vision when it was really wet, it's probably lucky that I wasn't in the car, because I probably would have ended up in the fence of all the rest of them.
That was bad, wasn't it?
Well, the other story that was big, that was unfolding behind the scenes, and it was actually Bruce Keys from the Confederation of Australian Motorsport that spoke to me about it, was the fact that the Texaco cars were under threat in terms of their eligibility. There was a problem with the fuel of the cars, and so that was all bubbling up. We'll take a break on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. We're back to tell more of the story in a moment. Look at this.
There's going to be one very big drama at the end of this race. I just chanced on a story a moment ago about possible illegal fuel in both the Texaco Sierras. Now, I've spoken with a Confederation of Australian Motorsport official who has taken a sample of the fuel from the vent bottle and also a sample of fuel from their overhead 120-litre refill compartment. The fuel that came out of the vent bottle blew the hydrometer off the clock. I'll let you read your own rules into that. And the fuel that was taken out of the overhead refill container, he said, quote, was almost right. So, work it out yourself. At the moment, the lap board says 139 laps. Cars 6 and 7 lead the race. And Peter Brock is in third position in car number 10. But at the end of this racing afternoon, there's going to be a lot of discussion about those two lead cars.
Welcome to the grand final.
This car, the crowd along pit straight already giving him a huge cheer as he pulled in. Let's go to Neil Crompton.
Well, Brock's just given me the thumbs up. It's the usual confident, happy and positive Peter Brock who's in the car at the moment. He's gone out to time of about 25 seconds and he is gassing in the Commodore. He's put slick tyres on. He's in third position. The drama continues with the Texaco Ford Sierras. Victory number 9 could be on the way.
How's the departure? Just about cleaned up about 3 crews.
How safe was that?
Yeah, extraordinary when you consider no pit lane speed limit, no 40Ks in those days. It was as hard as you could go. Grab as many gears as you could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Extraordinary stuff. So you were creeping forward. Brock was creeping forward. Did you get a sense at that stage of the politics with the Texaco cars, or were you just sort of doing your own thing? Did
I certainly didn't. Did you know about it?
No, I didn't know about it until 2 weeks after the race, to be honest, that what was going on, because like I was a young guy and didn't really care about the politics.
Never got the trophy.
Well, that was one of the points that I was going to make. One of the real great shames about this is that it was ultimately decided all post-race. So Peter's on the podium for third, you blokes are fourth, but you've got nothing to show for it. It's a great shame.
Yeah, it is really, and particularly in a big event like that, the first of the World Championships in Australia, and you look back on it. But when you're 22 and you've just finished a race like that, you're happy to finish anywhere.
Yeah, no, it was a shame really, because you know it's very euphoric if you're on the podium at Bathurst. Still is. So you know we didn't get that, but we didn't know we were not going to get it. You know we thought we were fourth. So end of story. 2 weeks later.
You got nothing? You got anything to show?
No, I didn't.
I just got a plaque, that's all I got.
I can't remember if I've got a plaque or not, but I might have. I better check. Better go through all those old boxes.
Well, the good news is we made a television show about it, so that's on the public record forever. Let's go to the podium, because that was a scene of great emotion.
The Texaco Sierras 1-2, but you asked for the man, you asked for him, it's Peter Brock!
We had a bit of bad luck with our first car today, and Dave Parsons and I were very thankful for Peter McLeod for having done such a great job in the first part of the race, because when we got in it, I'll tell you what, I gave it absolute heaps, particularly in the wet there in the finish. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself, I might add, and thanks for all your support out there too. I love the way you're cheering me on.
One young lady there that should be in every renter crowd. She had a good squeal. Really enjoying herself. It's outstanding, wasn't it? I mean, it's great to see all that passion. In fact, it's passion that drives this business. So a great reminder opportunity now for Shannons Club. So why not join the Shannons Club today? Create your own virtual garage, discuss topics on the forums, enter the latest competitions, find a car club or event. Plus, you can catch up and watch episodes of the Shannons Legends of Motorsport as well. All as a part of the experience of Shannons Club TV. So why don't you check that out when you get an opportunity at some stage. Boys, we're nearly out of time, but weeks later, it was all resolved, hearings, appeals, subsequent brawling. Peter Brock gets the victory. You ultimately finish second. Congratulations. Give them a warm round of applause. The applause that they didn't get when they should have. Yes. Unbelievable. And here's what Brock had to say post-event.
Yesterday in Paris, FISA upheld a protest against the Eggenberger squad by JPS BMW chief Frank Gardner and other teams over the eligibility of those Sierras. That gives victory number 9 at Bathurst to a provisionally perfect Peter.
I've sort of already felt as if we did as well as we could at Bathurst. The win is the financial reward. When and if it comes through, of course, will be most eagerly accepted, I can assure you of that. But I think philosophically, well, I've been happy enough about it anyway.
Peter Brock. Bathurst victory number 9 and what would ultimately turn out to be his final one up there. So an amazing year, 1987. Championship for you was a situation of runner-up and runner-up at Bathurst, and I know you would dearly love to have won, but still not a bad performance. Well done, mate.
Any opportunity you get to finish in those 1, 2, 3 at Bathurst is a great honour in this sport, because there's so many good drivers, so many good teams out there in motorsport over the years, and to get to that end of that day at 5 o'clock and have that opportunity to still finish second was great, and particularly do it with John, because we had a really good year that year, and we both worked together really well, and that's why we came up with the result we did, because we were both very equivalent drivers together in speed-wise, and it kept us going all day to finish where we did.
Fairly pivotal in my life, really, because also I'd had a race at Bathurst in '86, quite a battle with Dick in his green Mustang, and then had this run with Glenn, which was obviously a good performance. And then the next year, he offered me an opportunity to join the Shell team and the Sierras that were just about to be the best ones in the world. So things happen when they're supposed to happen, and I'm very grateful.
And we're very grateful that you've taken time out to spend a moment with us today. One of the great appeals of the notion of the series for me is to catch up with old friends, and it's great to have you both here today. Please thank John Bowe and Glenn Seaton, our guests today. Shannons Legends of Motorsport. Thanks, boys. That wraps us up. We're out of time. Join us next time for more of the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. Bye for now.
And he gives it absolutely everything when he's behind the wheel.
Mark Skate, towards the end of his career, was the best driver in the country for sure.
An amazing time, 12.8 seconds earlier in the week.
Very emotional in a lot of ways.
We led the race all day. I can't believe this. We've won the race. That's how it is.
People compare Mark Skate with Peter Brock.
And Mark might learn something out of this afternoon.
Focused, deserves all the success he's got.
He must be Peter Brock.
Oh, gee, did you see?
Wheel up. Rocky sideways. Had to fight for that to get it back on the road.
And he's just hurling it round. I mean, this is some of the most spectacular motoring. It doesn't matter where you go, anywhere in the world, you won't see anybody